Welcome into the DNVR Rockies podcast, brought to you by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use the promo code DNVR25 because when you do that, well, you get 25% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I'm your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons. And on this episode, we've got some baseball to discuss. We've got some Rockies pitching to discuss, particularly when it comes to another great performance from Germán Márquez. He and Jon Gray doing what we had talked about before the season they were set up to do, moving their way up the ranks of all-time great Colorado Rockies pitching. So we'll talk a bit about that, preview a little bit of the rest of the homestand. But Patrick, first and foremost, let there be sellout crowds at Coors Field once again someday soon. In fact, that day will be in this month, the 28th of June. The Colorado Rockies will go back to full capacity, and they're throwing basically a second opening day.
They are. They're calling it opening day 2.0 on June 28th. That's a Monday against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So you should end up going away like you did on the real opening day with a Rockies victory if things should stand pat. Yeah, they're going to do I don't think they're going to have a flyover, but they are going to have, the fireworks with the national anthem. They're going to be giving away a commemorative T-shirt only for the first 15,000 though. And they even changed the game time to be a little bit earlier, maybe a little more fan friendly. So that'll be at 3:10. All the festivities will be going on in the field at about 2:30. It's almost like a celebration of normalcy, getting back to that. So that'll be, really exciting. And I'm sure they'll even have some good ticket sales for you to go and be a part of that welcoming back of, yeah, you know what? 100% capacity. Let's do it, America. Let's do it, Colorado. Let's do it, Rockies fans, on June 28th.
Yeah, you got to hand it to him again. There's a lot of times you can and should criticize the organization. It'll be interesting to see how other orgs handle this. As we do, as you put it, return to normalcy. Maybe this will just be the standard, and so it's like, they don't get any extra points. But as far as I know, to this point, this is the first announcement of this type that I've heard that, hey, second opening day, and that's a pretty cool thing. I mean, what else was there really to do? It's like they're trying to sell tickets and do the thing, but I think it's pretty cool that they've gone through some lengths to make this a special thing for the fans, and to not just say, hey, we're letting more of you in, come on in, to make a thing of it, and to make it be like opening day, which we all know is a whole lot of fun. So it was something to do.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I mean, last night was kind of another start too, where capacity was increased. Granted, they didn't, really get any more people than they've been. It was around little over 18,000 last night. But I think, again, depending on who you follow on Twitter, there are people that are feeling more comfortable to come back to the ballpark. So sure, we're not talking sellout crowds or anything like that, and so that might be appealing to you if you are still just reacclimating yourself to getting back there in society. It's still very comfortable. It is an outdoor setting versus indoor at Ball Arena. People not as crazy though. Granted, we did see there a little tussle and a little fisticuffs thrown during that Padres series a couple weeks back. But other than that, it's pretty low key crowd. It's baseball. There's not a lot on the line. You're not going to rip your hair out. You're not going to be too overly stressed,
right,
like you might be on the couch, even just watching the Nuggets game.
that basketball game last night was absolutely insane, and I gotta say, NBA refs really do make MLB umpires look like saints, because that was some garbage. But you're right. It's all to be celebrated, except for the fighting when that happens. We don't like that. God, keep it together. Don't act like you haven't been outside in a year and a half. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're all going to get excited for it. Very curious to see what the festivities really do look like. And if they do, with everything else that we've seen with the fan apathy about this club, and they're not playing well. And so they don't have that, like even a hot start, they could pretend to the casuals to be like, hey, everybody come down now. And it's like, I don't think it's a for sure, 50,000 people on June 28th to see the Rockies and Pirates. It's going to be very interesting to see what the crowd is like on that day if they throw this big party and then it's still half empty, not because people can't go, but because people don't want to go. That'll be really, really interesting. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I had breakfast this morning with a good friend of mine who's been a long time Rockies fan. He's even a season ticket holder, and it's like, yeah, I just really haven't cared too much. And I think honestly that's probably very common for a lot of typically hardcore fans probably around the country. Again, if your team's doing really well, you'll figure out a way to care. But at a certain point, it's almost a tipping point where you go, even if the Rockies still had Nolan and we're just kind of scrapping along or we're around 500, people just really wouldn't be paying attention that much anyway. And you really wouldn't blame them. They're like, oh, are they around 500? Okay, cool. Yeah, let's give it some time. So you certainly can't blame them. But I had to give them the brief rundown. I said, you might not be missing too much. You might just be missing the great experience at Coors Field. I know you and I, know.
Yeah, I've never been that way. I'll watch every Rockies game forever. I've never been one of those people that's like, they're barely scragging along, so we'll see whatever. But like, I don't even know.
Yeah, same. I mean, besides it being my job, I'm a baseball fan. I love it. Yeah. But I understand how somebody else wouldn't. Because,
totally.
Again, as we talked about with Goody, this is a season of opportunity. So it means more maybe for the players. It means more for the hardcore guys, hardcore fans to say, all right, hey, here, this is my guy. Like we did at the beginning of the season, draft your dudes, and it made it fun because at the end, we're taking dudes that, again, if you were tuning into the DNVR Rockies podcast for the first time, you might not have even have heard of these guys. And so for an average fan or for a fan that frankly has a lot of things going on in their world, this is an okay time to maybe step away from the game a little bit and not go when there's large crowds. And sure, even if they're only bringing in 20,000, even if they maybe on let's say the 4th of July or the weekend of the 4th of July when the Cardinals come to town, that'll be a real big one. They might be able to get 40,000 people, and you go, yeah, that's a lot of people. And it's also a situation that some folks just still aren't comfortable with. So I understand all fans' perspectives on that.
It's going to be, like I said, really interesting to see, which directions those go. And it's going to be a bad look if they can't get very, very close to an actual traditional sellout. So all things will be fascinating. We'll be glued to the Rockies and Pirates on June 28th, as the entire baseball world should be, of course, as well they should be. All right, let's get into it then about today. But by the way, actually, because you were just talking about this, I was just looking at this. So a little pop quiz for you based on who's paying attention to the season so far and what you guess, and our dudes. There are 3 members of the Colorado Rockies currently who have an OPS plus above league average, so 100 or better, right? And they're all over. No one's right at 100. There are 3 guys who are over that 100 mark. Can you name them?
Batting over 100 OPS, Ryan McMahon would most likely have to be the first one on that list.
One of the 3.
And are they there? We're talking regulars, right? And I mean, anyone on the bench probably isn't over. It's probably, I would probably say Raimel Tapia, and I would even throw Charlie Blackmon on that list.
No, I was a little bit surprised by it. So
Daza and Story would be the other 2 that would be on the fringe. That
Daza was the guy, that surprised me, and I think he's brought it up in the last couple of weeks too. But Daza is in third, just over it. I think 102, 103. CJ Cron was the one. And again, you kind of remiss. But those other guys, Tap was above. He's fallen below. Scott, I'm not quite sure where Connor Joe is at this point because he's not on the roster at this moment. He wasn't included in the names I was looking at with him being back in AAA for a bit. He might have been close, but Blackmon and Story are sitting there in the mid-90s with Crone, McMahon, and Jonathan Daza, who did not have a guaranteed roster spot coming into spring training, sitting there as the third best bat on the team. That's both bad for the offense, but also, just again.
Good for him. Yeah, he's going the Tapia route where you say, hey, I need to make this roster or there's going to be a problem. And there might not have been too much of a problem for him because, again, sometimes the change of scenery is good for some guys. And you go, all right, well, he's going to go to another organization, maybe be a fifth outfielder. If there's an opportunity for somebody to claim him and maybe push him through waivers where he's down in AAA, kind of getting that time with another organization, maybe he would have been fine. But he rose to the challenge, and he absolutely earned that spot. I think, if Brendan Rodgers hadn't gotten hurt, I mean, maybe, there's a chance he probably could have gotten that spot maybe over Sam Hilliard, as strange as that would have seemed strange in March. And then now you go, well, yeah, Daz is here. Yeah. Hilliard is not.
Right.
But yeah, props to Daza playing well. Got 3 hits last night. This is his fourth 3-hit game of the season. And so he's been a real bright spot and was batting second in the lineup last night. So he's been at the top of the order doing those things. And, again, you can take advantage of a guy with a swing like that. Just putting the ball in play, the big outfield, that Coors Field. Why not? And something I don't want to get too much into, but one of the bigger topics around baseball is, the massive amount of injuries that have been going on. And I think on June 1st, so yesterday, it was like 244 guys
right.
were currently on the IL. So about 8 for each team. And the Rockies have fared somewhat well. Freeland and Rogers really being only
they got their 2 biggest ones back recently, so
sure.
They're active now. Yeah,
and Chris Owings, you never really know what could have been, but he played great.
Oberg has been a killer with the being so bad, but
you're right. He kind of almost gets not included in with the group because this is just this whole other thing. It's almost like when you talk about contractual obligations and stuff, and you talk about Ian Desmond, you almost forget him being in the mix. Great point about Oberg. I think, this goes back to something we talked about during the offseason when we talk about your guy, Juan Pierre, is that so much, I think, in baseball has been made about rate stats. Well, how hard can you hit the ball?
Yeah.
What's your OPS? What do you get on base? What are you slugging? Your launch angle, exit velocity, all of these things, barrels or percentage of barrels. How fast are you throwing? Movement, all that stuff that at the end of the day, you go, yeah, but is this guy healthy or not? Like that is a skill. And Major League Baseball, it's their fault. It's the owners, it's the GMs. They have valued the guy that is putting up those numbers, those rate stats, and have said, we want that guy. Because if we just got to get it, we just got to get him healthy. And as soon as he's healthy, we get that for a whole season. Oh, hell yeah. And so players are going, all right, that's what you want? Then that's what we're going to give you. And I'm on the IL for a quarter of the season.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help a team out at all. So that kind of ability to just stay healthy, to do the thing that Raimel Tapia has been doing for so much of his career has totally been forgotten about and it's totally been downplayed and it shouldn't be. And I think we might see a correction at some point because guys are just getting injured far too frequently.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to. I'm glad you reminded me of this issue because I didn't know we were going to talk about this today, but I used to do these comparisons on clutch with Nolan Arenado and Troy Tulowitzki, but you can do the exact same thing. I was always 100% enamored with clutch, and that was my obsession, and that's what I was researching. That's what I was writing about, and I would do this stuff, and people would go, yeah, Drew, fine. I see what you're saying, that these numbers are great. I agree with you. Very cool. But I take Nolan over Tulo for one very, very simple reason. Nolan was always on the ball field, and Tulo would miss a third to a half of the season almost every year. Because what you're saying is you look at the WAR per game. Numbers, any of those rate stats that you were talking about, all that stuff's going to favor Tulo. We'll tell you, Troy Tulowitzki was the more valuable player pretty much every game he stepped on the field.
There's your asterisk. There's the problem. Like, what problem? What problem? This sounds great so far.
Yeah.
Let's bring this guy out of retirement.
Yeah.
Because what you're telling me makes it sound like Troy Tulowitzki is the guy.
Right.
Except.
Right. And it just, when you can't get there. And so guys like, Juan Pierre was one of those guys who actually one of the only people post Cal Ripken that made you pause for just a second and go, oh man, look at a consecutive game streak going. I think he got to like over 1,000 or something. It's not even like, but he did several years, close to a decade, where he played every single game. And, Tapia hasn't reached the ability level to do that kind of thing yet, but the health level has always been there. So Daza might be another one of those guys too that's been really healthy throughout his career. I think you're right. We're going to see a return to those guys who can stay on the field, and the consistency element of it, to be able to provide me something every game, even if by rate it's not as quality. So that's a really interesting point. Yeah, we'll have to keep our eyes on that.
Looks like it was about 821 consecutive games.
821.
2002 to 2007. And so, not too many guys have really even gotten to 1,000 consecutive games. And again, that's not valued. I mean, I can't even think of
7,000, and it suddenly sounded like so many. So 20 is.
You just don't hear about that at all because you understand of the grind, and it's like it's still 162 games. So why is it more of a grind? And you go, well, yes, we get it with specialization of relievers and guys throwing harder, et cetera, but you're still doing the same general things. And I think it's that, again, you understand you got to give these guys off days, and we're looking too much behind the scenes at things. Let me take that back. It's not that we're looking behind the scenes too much. It's that those things are just being overvalued.
Yeah.
And we've almost gotten to this extreme where, man, no, you've got to be able to throw over 100 miles an hour on every single pitch, and we're losing that effectiveness. It's like the goal is just to get guys out, isn't it? And well, yeah, it might be easier if you throw faster, but it's also very hard to get outs when you're on the injured list.
Right.
And we also have this slew of these young guys who can throw really fast, don't really know where the ball's going. Guys are getting hit all over the place. Poor Kevin Pillar got smashed in the face. He's a warrior. He's now somewhat of a cult hero now in New York all of a sudden. Mets fans loving him for coming back. So it's definitely something that has to get corrected a little bit. And maybe that's one of those market inefficiencies that the Rockies could eventually take advantage of and say, look, we're going to pay you for your ability to stay on the field and to stay healthy. And I think that's one reason why you and I know this, why after games, Charlie Blackmon is one of the last people to leave the stadium. He's a guy who, after we go around and, 2019, the last time we were allowed in the clubhouse, again, this was a team that was in it until August, right? But June, July, they were still scuffling, and there were still some of those big games. There's still a lot of big name players on the team. They would have a come from behind victory, whatever it was. Everyone was buzzing. There's about 5 or 6 different guys you got to get to. And Charlie Blackmon still hasn't come back into the clubhouse after all of the post-game interviews, all that stuff, all the time it takes to get from the press box down into the clubhouse, because he's still doing his workout, because he knows, hey, we've got another game tomorrow at 6:40 p.m. that I got to be ready for. Yeah. And so Charlie gets that. Charlie understands that. Tapia's in that groove too. And so that, again, Moneyball is all about finding the market inefficiency. Right now, that inefficiency is health.
Yep. Totally agree. Talk about some things that are good for your health. First of all, checking out our friends at Chevalier Mortgage. We know it can be really stressful, and stress is bad for your health, trying to find the right mortgage, the right loans, all that nonsense. But it doesn't have to be. It does not have to be that way. Remember that Chevalier is literally French for protectors of the realm. They'll take care of you. They'll protect you and your realm. But whatever that means to you, this is not
a domain, your castle.
That's right. That is correct. And they will make sure that you know all the best rates, all the best market information that you need to know. And they're big sports fans, which is pretty cool too. So they can talk to you about whatever's going on in the sporting world. Check them out today at DNVRmortgage.com. Enter to win a free DNVR shirt or hat of your choice. But when you do that, most importantly, you get set up with a free consultation to discuss all your options. That's right, a free consultation at DNVRmortgage.com. You can also call Virginia directly at 303-257-6578 or Mike at 970-412-2472. NMLS for Michael Chevalier, 193-1006, and Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631.
This is how you know that all of our sponsors are OGs, because none of them have the new 970 area code.
Right?
Nah.
It goes all back. I heard there's going to be a new one.
Yeah, 970. That's the one.
Dude, that is the new one.
I mean, I still have my jersey. Extent. I'm 732. People are like, you mean 720? Yeah. Nah, 732. I got to keep it. Just in case my best friend in 8th grade, needs to reach back out to me again and reconnect. I need to have the same cell phone number.
Yeah. It's important. These are the important things. Also important, making sure that you're drinking plenty of Breck Brew and Breck Seltzy. You're toasting to the Colorado Rockies that we're going to be talking about coming up next. We got all kinds of delicious stuff. You can get the 15-can sampler of brews or seltzies at your local liquor store, King Supers, down at the DNVR bar, where you get a much bigger one if you are a member of the family. Do subscribe today at the DNVR.com. You get access to all the written content, plus discounts on hats and shirts and masks. You get to come and hang out with us in the Discord channel. We're talking all kinds of baseball, football, basketball, hockey, movies, TV. Big chatter in the pro wrestling Discord channel today.
Big news today.
Goodness gracious.
If you want more content, and even if you're not a subscriber, hit up Brandon Spano and let him know you want some DNVR combat. We'll cover pro wrestling, we'll cover UFC, all the MMA business, whatever you want, even the Southern California Taekwondo tournament, whatever you want to do.
All of it.
The All Valley tournament, we will cover that.
Brandon used to be a big boxing guy, so lean heavily on that.
Boxing. Yes, the Paul brothers are doing good business for boxing everywhere, so we could jump on that.
So do subscribe again at the DNVR.com today. If you get the annual, we'll hook you up with a free shirt from the DNVR Locker and a free stick from our friends at Holistic Wellness. Check them out today at HOLISTIK wellness.com for all your CBD needs. Use that promo code DNVR30 to get 30% off after you've got that free one from us, again, just for signing up for becoming a member of the family.
And I want to start a trend there. Next time you go to your local purveyor of adult beverages, to go in and say, hey, can I get one of the Breck Brew tap packs? And over time, they will begin to realize you are talking about the 15-can sampler.
Wow, that's
tap
good.
Pack.
That's right, the 15.
Crack open a tap pack. He's number 15. The all-time, is he the all-time greatest number 15? I mean, would you put him ahead of Jay Payton? Yeah, of course. Tyler Matzik? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But how about Jeremy Guthrie? Yeah, still. Current hitting coach Jeff Salazar? Yeah. The top three before Tapia. Tapia's number one. Come on. You got Denny Nagel, Ben Petrick, and another catcher, Jeff Reed. That's it. Tappy is now the greatest number.
Got a nice.
It's a tap pack.
It's a tap pack. It's a tap pack. The Jeff Reed pack. Who are we trying to impress with that? What kind of hipster nonsense is that?
No.
Got to know who Jeff Reed is to enjoy this beer. Enjoy a little Jeff Reed shout out. Speaking, by the way, of Colorado Rockies history and Colorado Rockies greats, there are a couple of current pitchers, Patrick, as we've talked about, in Germán Márquez and Jon Gray, who are doing the thing this year. Neither of them has been, Gray has maybe been as consistent as he's ever been. Márquez has not yet been the dominant pitcher we know him to be, but he's really settled into being pretty good just about every time out, with another 7-inning performance, 1 run given up last night. These guys keep climbing up the ranks on the all-time Colorado Rockies pitching charts. You love to see it. You love to be able to witness history, like you said, for the people who aren't paying attention and who have very understandably checked out. What are you missing? Not much, but some of these are the things you are missing. If you're not watching right now, when Jon Gray gets his career 700th strikeout, I think he just passed Jeff Francis. Let's bring up the numbers again. But just in general, man, it's pretty cool to get to watch both of these guys cement themselves as, really, I think by the end of the year, both of them top 5, just statistically speaking, pitchers in Colorado Rockies history.
Yeah, Márquez will need 33 more, or I should say 33 to tie, 34 to pass Jeff Francis, and then they're both going to be in the top 5. And we previewed that this offseason. Again, it's another reason to make sure you're listening to DNVR Rockies all year long. We talked about, Germán Márquez possibly reaching the pinnacle and topping out past Jorge De La Rosa and the all-time strikeout list. We previewed the exact same thing with Jon Gray, and you say, well, if he gets traded at the deadline, maybe he only is able to get past Eubaldo Jimenez and for second place all time. But all of these are definitely within reach, and eventually we'll even get around to Kyle Freeland and pitcher wins, getting past Pedro Estacio. But yeah, Márquez, the second this season to get over 700. Gray's now at 742, tied with Jeff Francis for 4th all time with 7 strikeouts last night. Márquez now has 709 and joins a select group of players to get over that milestone. As we said, Jeff Francis, Pedro Estacio, Eubaldo Jimenez, and Jorge De La Rosa, head and shoulders above the rest of the group. A good 212 strikeouts ahead of second place Eubaldo Jimenez. Not bad.
Yeah, a little bit of that's longevity and being Mr. Rocky. But as you just
goes back to what we just said. That's right. That's
exactly what you just said, especially as a Rockies pitcher. One day, someone will figure out the metric that shows us how good Jorge De La Rosa really, truly was. One of those guys. But yeah, an absolutely fascinating set of stuff. There's one thing actually that I also wanted to correct that I had said on the podcast before about Rockies pitchers who pitched better at home, because I had mentioned that Eubaldo Jimenez was a counterexample to the point that I was making, and he's actually not. What I was remembering was that in his great season in 2010, he was better out on the road. He had about a 2.30 ERA out on the road, but he still had a 3.19 ERA at Coors Field. So he was still fantastic there. But every other year of his Rockies tenure and for his career, Eubaldo Jimenez was better at home. And so Germán Márquez actually becomes sort of this counterexample of guys who were in the top 10 Rockies pitchers of all time, but are significantly better out on the road. That's something that we'll have to keep paying more and more. Like, why does that happen? Why do the best Rockies pitchers tackle this problem? And how are they doing it? But I just want to correct that about Ubaldo. I was looking through his numbers. I was like, oh, I was wrong about his splits. He was actually better at Coors Field as well.
Yeah, I think you saw on Tuesday night just how well Márquez can deal and how easy he made it look. And I think he threw 83 pitches last night, or was it 88?
He did get to 90, yeah.
He had 88 and was like, yeah, I think that was it, which I was a little surprised by, to be honest. But I know he's been trying to build back innings up after that poor start at home against San Francisco when he couldn't get out of the first inning. But since then, he's had over 6 strikeouts in his last 5 starts. And outside of the one at home against Cincinnati where he gave up 4 runs, he's given up 1 or less run in 6 or more innings pitched with 6 or more strikeouts. So I don't know that I tweeted about that last night, but I think I did. It was outings of 6 or more strikeouts, like streaks of 6 or more strikeouts. And he's had streaks of 5 straight games 4 different times. And again, Eubaldo Jimenez, twice he had a streak of 5 or more. I think he had 2 that were 7. get to 7 streaks of 6 or more strikeouts. And then Pedro Saucio, I think, had 2 streaks, 1 of 7, 1 of 8. So we'll see if Marquez can go on and do that. And again, if you go and right now that's a counting stat. And if we go back to the rate stat, and again, take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, we're talking about longevity still because Gray and Marquez have been relatively healthy. If you look at strikeouts per 9, Marquez and Gray are actually 1 and 2.
Right.
They're both over 9 with Marquez just ahead, and he'll probably, keep that lead. But again, that kind of just puts in perspective where, hey, you just stay healthy and do what you do over time. Eventually, you rack up those counting stats and you get on that all-time leaderboard, that the list of the all-time greats of Rockies pitchers.
Yeah. It's right there. It'll be very fascinating to see if Gray, that's the big, he'll stay right in front of him and he'll keep staying just ahead of him as long as he stays on the team and stays healthy. And until then, Marquez will be able to catch him. Like I said, I've made the arguments before about why I think it would be interesting to keep the pitching staff together. And a lot of it is just the difficulty in trying to recreate these guys. We see Jon has gotten his ERA plus for his career, bumped it up by a whole point already this season, up to 108 from 107, where it had been for the career, 125 this year. Marquez, again, 112, not like we've seen him have these 135 seasons. But again, back to your point about, consistency, as much as you maybe even would feel disappointed that in his prime, Marquez isn't becoming this Cy Young contender just yet that we thought he would be. Or he's not out there really flirting with complete games, or he's had these rough game he couldn't get out of the first inning in. But you look at his ERA plus numbers since 2017, 115, 125, 107, 139, 112 this year. And he's under contract for the next several. There's just when at your worst, you're still a decently well above average league pitcher. That's an extraordinary value to have.
And I love how you said recreate, because that's definitely something that we touched on Tuesday's podcast when we looked at okay, who do we think is more likely, or who has the higher ceiling in these different scenarios, and waving the magic wand, and who's going to have that better career. And it's easy right now to just think okay, the pitching situation is it's been solved for the time being, and bullpens are bullpens. Let's forget about that. But starting pitching, it's kind of all good. And Ralston, I'm sure, will step in. And hey, when Peter Lambert gets healthy, he'll kind of step in. And you've got guys, looming, and we see Chris Olivares. You go, yeah. There's going to be guys who slot in, but very soon those guys could be gone, where their control by the Rockies over their contract is going to be up at a certain point, and it's going to be harder to replace those guys, because we've hashed out everything with Nolan Arenado a million times over, and I'm sure we'll have a conversation again at some point. But you can replace him to a degree. You can't really. You can't ever really replace him. But you could tell yourself,
recreate him in the aggregate.
You could recreate him, because when you go and you look through the top 10 or 12, as Baseball Reference does, random number, all-time greatest players from WAR, B-WAR in Rockies history, you got to go pretty far down the line until you hit a pitcher. Todd Helton, Larry Walker, Arenado, Tulowitzki, Cargo, Trevor Story, Matt Holliday, Charlie Blackmon, Eubaldo Jimenez, Vinny Castilla. Hey, Aaron Cook. There's another one. DJ LeMahieu. And you go, that seems a bit extreme. And yeah, it is. And that's what Coors Field is. It is an extreme environment that is kinder to hitters than they are to pitchers. And just because right now it seems like the Rockies have this, dearth of depth, that could be a book. If they ever win a World Series because of this pitching staff, dearth of depth.
The dearth of depth
might be a little redundant as well. Redundantly having dearth of depth, but it's easy to look past that. But man, very soon you could go back and look and say, you know what, we should have really been focusing a little bit more on trying to recreate these guys, because this has been the first real group that you've ever wanted to recreate. In 2007, staff again was really solid, and you had those pieces with a young Jimenez, and they ended up doing well on a whole. But it really wasn't until this group of 4 with a rotating 5th rotation member that you've got something that you really need to be careful with. You got to figure out how to recreate this, figure out how you can substitute, bring in different members, and still have that same thing because it is a rarity.
Yeah. And, Gomber sitting there with the 102 ERA plus on the year. He was a 105 guy for the Cardinals. Again, the raw ERA numbers don't jump out at you, but when you do look back at those, you hope he improves. If not, at the very least, they've got a nice number 4 starter for the next, several years to come. Again, when you look back at those 07 and 09 teams that put up the really good team-wide ERA plus numbers, you had the Jason Hirsches and the Jason Hamill. Were they all named Jason? Apparently they need to get a Jason, but those guys who would put up, I think Hirsch had an exactly 100 ERA plus, right? Those guys who can come in and just get the innings and not be a disaster for you. And I think that's kind of the floor of what we're looking at for Gomber now. And so, again, that's why, as counterintuitive as it would seem to say, we're for sure going to do a bit of a rebuild here, but we're also going to sign all of our starting pitchers to extensions. It's like, because I don't think they're going to cost you that much. And John's the oldest one at 29. So, again, that's where if you go, okay, 29's getting there. If he was 27, I'd say no way, but just sign him. Other than that, like you said, you need that dearth of depth. I need all of them. I need Peter Lambert to be the next one.
What's kind of interesting, and again, I don't know how much an analytics department could help, or I don't know how much someone from outside of the organization can help, but you could, again, and this would be a gigantic PowerPoint presentation to Mr. Dick Monfort, but I could see a scenario. And again, the information that you research will dictate it. But I could see a world in which you gather up all the information you can, and it's dictated that it is a lot better for you to come to some kind of agreement with Jon Gray before you try to even extend Marquez even further or extend Freeland and Senzatella, because as soon as Gray hits that market, especially on the backs of what he's doing this season, and okay, he's leveled a little bit. When he goes out into free agency and the Rockies and those other guys begin to see how their pitchers are valued, they're going to go, well, shoot, hold on. There's no hometown discount, or there's not even a hometown discount. It's just, oh, wow, you just want to give me this money because you like me and you like what I'm doing. It's like, well, yeah, that's just part of the business. Look what happened with Gray. We talked about Tyler Chatwood not that long ago and the money that he got. And you go, well, wait a minute. Just because they're doing these things in Coors Field and you look at their baseball reference page, and even when you try to balance out their statistics and use sabermetrics to figure out their value, there's still no real way to quantify it. Well, quantify it by what the other 29 teams are willing to give those guys. And Gray, he very well should get a lot more than what Chatty got. And that's going to mean Freeland and Senzatella are going to get even more. So you might almost want to see if you can extend Gray now,
just to make sure,
just to keep the market down a little bit in the next couple of years. So that if you do have an interest in signing 2 of those guys, it needs to be Gray and either Freeland or Senzatella, because if Gray goes out there, again, he could break the bank, break that mold, and now Freeland, Senzatella go, whoa. They were whispering in our ear about the money that they were going to give us guaranteed, and that seemed pretty great. It didn't seem like a hometown discount at all. We just feel very lucky to get it.
Right.
But look at what Johnny just did. Look at what Gray just did.
Yeah.
I want that. Like you need to raise your price, Mr. Monfort, if you want to keep me around. So that would be, again, that's something that no matter how much research you and I end up doing, that we'll never know, because it would all be lip service from any of our resources and different organizations and things of that nature. But that's one of those things that front offices do. Well, they'll look and say, strategically, it might be better to sign John and maybe even overpay him a little bit, because if he even gets that exact amount in free agency, that could open up some eyes.
Totally.
to our other guys,
right.
which is going to cost us more money down the line. So, we'll pay now for that insurance, so to speak, so we can pay less later.
Exactly right. And it's exactly the kind of thing that they should be doing on the pitching side of it, because while their guys' value is at least perceivably low, right? Because they've never pitched anywhere else. They're homegrown guys. And like you said, there's nowhere else to compare it to. We had this same conversation when it came to DJ LeMahieu, if you'll recall. And I had said, I don't think it's 100% fair that the Rockies get hit so hard for undervaluing DJ LeMahieu, because everybody undervalued DJ LeMahieu, including the team that signed him and said on day one, yeah, we think he's going to be a utility guy. I don't know. We might have to stick him over at first. We're not really sure what we're going to do with him. They were more excited about signing Troy Tulowitzki that offseason, the Yankees were, than having signed DJ LeMahieu. At the same time, I said in that conversation, the Rockies should know their own players.
That's right.
Better than everybody else, right? They should have known that. And DJ was never going to become what he is now with the Yankees. We've been over all that as well. He was going to keep being what he was with the Rockies, which was actually a very good baseball player who was under. This is the exact thing we're talking about Jon Gray right now. Jon Gray's super underrated, just like DJ LeMahieu was then, right now. If he goes somewhere else, and probably not for quite as much money but you're right, they gave Chatty, so you see it just takes one team, and pitching is something else. Guy still, he can pitch. So okay, he gets signed somewhere, he goes somewhere, and he's awesome, and it'll be the same thing again. Rockies, you drafted this guy. Bill Schmidt at some point sat in this guy's living room when he was in Oklahoma and drafted him. You grew him from Grand Junction to Denver, all the spots in between, the early struggles of his career, the really tough year in 2018 when everybody else was playing well and he was eating it. But you should know what he's worth. You've got to know what he's the number one. If I could sign anyone on this team to an extension, more than Story, more than McMahon right now, there's nobody else on this team that should be extended quicker than him for that reason. You've got to know the value of your own guy and what he can mean for your franchise, and all the stuff you just said about not letting the word get out. This has to be your market inefficiency. Homegrown Colorado Rockies pitching that may not look as good to the outside world as it does to us, but we know here, and we value that. That's a power play you have to make. If not with Jon, with somebody, but do it with Jon, because you don't have, there's less guesswork involved. There's so much guesswork involved when it comes to who can pitch well at Coors Field. You know who I don't have to guess about whether or not they can handle pitching at Coors Field? Jon Gray.
Let me ask you this. Probably, I don't want to say literally the entire time he's been in the majors, and maybe even including when he was in the minors, but outside of a stretch for Kyle Freeland, I wouldn't even say the whole season, but for a stretch, who has been their ace? Who's been the Rockies' ace?
Right.
It's been Jon Gray. He's been the guy that they've looked, even if he hasn't pitched the best, he's been the guy that they look to.
Right.
Even if he goes out.
Yeah.
Because I think we know, like, he keeps to himself. He's a quieter guy, and you're like, yeah, no, I don't necessarily know that he would want to pitch to the Yankees, even if they were to throw a bundle at them. I think his profile might not fit. Like, the Yankees might not even be interested in him for that reason. Say, yeah, I think we could find somebody else that could do just as well, if not better, simply because, you know, they might have the moxie or the makeup or whatever. Or again, some guys they feed off of that fire and that intensity, and that, please tell me I can't do it. Please tell me, because I want to prove you wrong. And that works for some. It doesn't for others. That being said, by the
way, that was the very first conversation I had with Jon Gray in 2013. We had the very short hair, fresh out of school. He'd just gotten off the bus. Of course, I'd been asking guys questions for about 10 minutes of my career. And first thing out of my, oh, you're a pitcher, Coors Field, you know, whatever crap you say. And that was it. And he just went, good. Tell me I can't do it. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show them that I can't just make it at Coors Field. I'm going to show them I can be dominant at Coors Field. And that was 8 years ago.
Yeah. And so Gray's been that ace. And even if you say, well, this is a comfortable spot for him, right? He's been a Colorado Rockies lifer, and you put him in a different market, even if it isn't New York, right? There's still 27 other markets that aren't New York. What about Boston and maybe Philly? Outside of that, every other market is all right. It's fine. It's not as cutthroat. Just Boston and New York are really the only two that are like that. But even
they can get on you a little bit, but it depends.
Yeah, I think it's relatively light. They're in their own tier. But the bottom line is this: even if another team shells out for him, and if we're only talking $70 million over 4 years, which is good money, you go, oh, this guy's getting paid a lot. Put him on the Washington Nationals. Is he the ace there? Even with Strasburg leaving in free agency after this year, with not Strasburg, excuse me, Max Scherzer. Strasburg's there. Patrick Corbin's making more money. Joe Ross is in his final year before free agency. No one is looking to Gray as the ace that needs to be the ace, and everyone else is figuring it out around him. So you put him into another group, even if he is getting paid that money in free agency, he doesn't necessarily have to be that number one that everybody is looking to. Again, we know it's changing. Freeland did have the big year in 2018. Right. We've seen what Marquez has been able to do, but still there is this belief of like Gray being the guy and the weight and the pressure that can come with it. I don't think it's a lot, but regardless, he goes to another market where there is going to be more pressure on him. It really will be just what he's dealing with now because he'll be the number 2 or 3rd most pressurized guy. He may be their second best pitcher, but there's going to be a little bit more pressure on some of those other guys, I think, and that's going to allow him to feel comfortable. So, it's a lot of interesting dynamics there, and again, that's one of the reasons why the Rockies need to make sure that they have a plan. They don't have to tell the world about it, but you just got to cross your fingers and hope that they at least have a plan that's going to work for them here in the next couple of years going forward.
Because it is funny, like you look at this group, and obviously Gray and Freeland were back-to-back drafts. They more or less came up together. Marquez was traded for, but came along right around that same time. There were a few other guys in the mix there who didn't pan out. Love you, Eddie Butler. love you forever. Tyler Anderson was another one. That Tulsa pitching staff, when it was Gray, Freeland, Anderson, and Eddie Butler, those guys were ridiculous. But it's, and that's what it's going to be with this next group. Some of them are going to pan out. Some of them aren't. Some are going to turn into more than people thought. But there's something about keeping the band together as well. They seem intent on, they gave the extension to Marquez. I think they're going to approach Kyle Freeland about a thing that I think most people expect that to be something that continues and there be mutual interest there. So it's like, what happens to that whole thing? Like Gray, as you just said, he's not only been the ace, he's kind of been the Papa Bear, right? He's the guy that went through everything first. So he could turn and tell them, this is what your major league debut is like. This is what it's like, pitching your first game, just get into the ballpark. This is where you need to go and do these things. This is what it's going to feel like the first time you get shelled at Coors Field. All of those things that he could take them through. He's really been there to see it through. And Joe is right here in the comments. This is something he's known as being a great guy. Tells a story about coming over to say hi to the family in San Diego. I remember writing about when he was in Grand Junction, and he would come home after games he had pitched in and play catch with the kids at the host family that he was staying with. Just hang out in the backyard, play some catch, talk baseball with the kids. And he was only there for a couple of weeks. That's a guy you want as part of your organization. My dad used to say, I want that guy on my team. And that's something like, I'd be like, what do you mean, like the Rockies or the Royals? No, just on my team. I want that guy on my team. And Jon Gray is one of those guys you want on your team, and particularly in your starting rotation. It's the most important part of the team, and it's the hardest to make go right. So I would be very leery about removing arguably the most important cog, even if Freeland and Marquez have better careers ahead of them. Jon Gray is the most important cog of the rotation. So
historically, they've had a hard time recreating those guys.
Yep.
That's what it comes back to. So 2 other interesting pieces of history going down at Coors Field. Yesterday, Charlie Blackmon tied Carlos Gonzalez for second most games played in Rockies history, of course, trailing Todd Helton and trailing Todd Helton and Carlos Gonzalez. He tied Larry Walker for third most for Rockies. So today he'll go ahead of that. Similarly, he's behind Larry Walker with 10 hits for second most in franchise history. It's another one that we happened to preview during the off season as Charlie just becomes one of those all-time greats. I think when it's all said and done, I think number 19, will get retired. It certainly should. For what he's represented to this entire organization. Again, we've talked a lot in the last week about his value kind of off the field, or at least in the clubhouse. And, you can speculate all you want as to what he did on Sunday in Pittsburgh to get his team, together to get a victory. Threw him on his back during the game, before the game. Your guess is as good as ours. What kind of crazy thing that he said, man, we got to mix this up because this is sucking. So you know what?
Yeah.
Let's break out the bag of tricks, man. He was like
about the Papa Bear,
a black-haired carrot top. Brought the trunk out, and I'm sure they had a good old time, and it worked. And they've won 2 games since then. So I think number 19 definitely needs to be immortalized when that time comes.
Yes.
And then one other interesting piece of information that I didn't realize, someone had mentioned it. Someone had mentioned something to me about the scorekeeper at last night's game. We all signed something for this person, and I thought nobody wants my autograph, but okay. Now I'm thinking after the fact, oh, am I going to be in Cooperstown? Is this piece of paper going anywhere? Probably not. But a woman by the name of Jillian Gieb became what is believed to be only the third female to ever be the official scorekeeper in a major league game. First ever at Coors Field, and just the third ever. And when I looked over and saw her there, because she's there, she works the scoreboard a whole bunch with that whole crew, and they rotate in and out, and I saw her over there. I'm like, oh, it was their first game. Cool. I didn't think, oh my gosh, but she's a female. It didn't make me feel very good about myself. I'm going to be honest. I was like, damn, I'm woke. I was like, yeah, why? What's the big deal? Of course she would. And then you hear, oh, it's kind of a big deal because, women haven't historically gotten that opportunity for whatever reason. We know some of those reasons, but still, third ever Coors Field Rockies last night. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly misogyny and bullshit. But yeah, it was pretty cool to see that. It was funny. I had a similar, my first thought was I thought she had scored a game before.
Yeah.
And I really thought it actually had a very similar reaction when I was doing research years ago for a Jenny Kavnar piece and writing about, how she would be the first woman in the National League to broadcast on the radio. And I was like, that can't be right, surely. And I was like, no. I thought I'd heard, and no. And I had heard Susan Waldman for the Yankees on the American League, so there's a little bit of that. I was like, no, that's really the case. So yeah, it's like we see her up there, and it's like, but yes, the big thing. So congratulations. Glad everybody highlighted that because I wouldn't have known or noticed, and it is a big deal. So that was really, really cool. I'm glad that the Rockies. I thought the Rockies, I guess we'll have to call them new social media team, also did a really, really good job of highlighting that and celebrating it and doing the good work there. So cool stuff.
Yeah, it was really cool. And, it was kind of trending around, Major League Baseball a little bit yesterday, which was awesome to see. And, she's a school teacher. So this is, again, kind of a passion thing. Believe it or not, you can't get rich or pay your bills by being a scorekeeper as much as we would like. Yeah. There's a lot of jobs in this industry where you need to keep your day job. But you never know. Eventually, at some point, who knows? She might be able to transition into something in baseball because she's in a very elite group. And now she's out there. She's got this big thing on her resume, and that was so exciting to see. And I was glad to be a little part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And it's all been a part of, Real Corsi Cat. We've been talking a little bit, going back to Kim. We did a special Women in Major League Baseball that didn't feature either of us, featured all the women here at DNVR. and the Denver Women's Sports Collective, which, by the way, if you're not following the Denver Women's Sports Collective, make sure that you are. They're absolutely fantastic. They've been down to the DNVR bar to shoot a couple of fun things, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to them more and more, because hopefully these stories will continue to be a thing. We'll see more coaches and GMs and all of these kinds of things, and a manager. Before, I believe, in our lifetimes, in our time covering Major League Baseball,
I think so.
We will see a woman manage. Becky Hammon is on the verge of getting that Boston Celtics job. I don't know if you saw the odds come out for that. So they're very close in the NBA, but I think in the next
baseball's a little bit further away for sure.
15 years, 20. I'll say 20 in the next 20.
I think
years.
It might be more. Okay. I don't know. No, 20 is a long damn time. Because women have only recently been coaches, but one of those, handful of coaches in 20 years. Well, yeah, okay. So, all right, you know what? That isn't crazy to think about. You're right. Yeah, I think 15, 20 years definitely could happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
You can see it, you can be it. It's crazy, because if you're a white dude listening to this, what can't you be? Yep. Right? But not everyone can just be whatever they want, because they don't necessarily see that. So they don't think that that's an option or an opportunity. And so now we're beginning to live in a world in which anyone really can do anything. And it's not just lip service. It's like, no, look, there's the evidence of it. Like it's finally happening now. So it's a nice change in our world for sure.
Big stuff. And I do still have to, inartful as it may seem, I have to say, if you predicted all this coming, then you should get on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Look, folks, we do also have bills to pay. Good things going on out there in the world, but also sports going on out there in the world that you can bet on every day with our friends at DraftKings Sportsbook. Whether you're betting baseball, basketball, football, or hockey. Yes, I know they're not playing football right now, but surely you can get odds on whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to end up as a Denver Bronco. I would assume that's on there, as many things like that often are. It's not even just the games, though. Of course, you know about over-unders on strikeouts and run totals, who's going to hit a home run or not, who's going to get a hit or not, even at bat to at bat. It makes it so much fun. Sometimes it can even fatten up the wallet a little bit, so you can go spend money on Breck Brews and Strava Craft coffee. So download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code DNVR when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game. And if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. That's promo code DNVR for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only, new customers only. Wager paid out and site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
I missed on Adolis Garcia last night. Would come up in extras.
Final score, though.
Yes, but I said 4-2. It was 3-2. So again, you hit the under on that. I think you still had the over on Marquez strikeouts. So I 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah. I'd say that's pretty good. Is Jordan Lyles on the hill tonight for the Rangers?
Jordan Lyles coming back in action.
So the Rockies get the series. Talking about, we just did this whole thing about guys who could or could not pitch at Coors, who rises to the challenge and says, I want to prove you wrong, and who says, please, for the love of God, let me pitch anywhere else. Jordan Lyles was category number 2, and he's found much success, or decent success, everywhere else. But his ventures back to Coors Field have not been pretty. So
no, and we know David Dahl's on the injured list. So and I don't think he's traveled with the team to be a part of this series.
But get to come say hi. That's
no. But there was another former Rocky that was there that has an alliterative name with double initials like DD. It was CC. Charlie Culberson came in for a late at that, and of course got a nice small eruption in the press box. I'm like, hey, all right, yeah, I forgot about that guy. He's in the lineup tonight, batting 7th, playing second base.
Charlie Culberson has one of the best heads of hair I've ever seen in that Rockies clubhouse. So,
for sure.
Who was the guy? Shoot, now we're playing this game. Yeah, you're not going to get this guy.
No, okay.
It was a Rockies middle reliever. I believe he was right-handed in those.
Edgemer Escalona.
Okay, you're in the right era.
Okay.
Shoot. No, this is gonna drive me
This game only works if you have hints to
Yeah,
get.
I know. I was gonna say, I'm trying to think of hints
Pitcher,
beyond the thing.
Rockies.
Well, great head of hair. And it wasn't Christian Friedrich, but it was someone who looked and his name was kind of similar to that. Was his name also Christian? Did they have another guy? No, it doesn't sound right.
Christian Bergman?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Two-man gang right here. The two-man gang.
Christian Bergman. Great facial hair. Top of the head of hair game. I can't believe we got to Christian Bergman.
We got it. We figured it out.
There's a name I've not thought of since whatever day he was released by the Rockies, but he was a good guy. Good interview.
I never had a doubt. Here, I got pictures. Let's take a look at this jabroni. And I say that affectionately because everyone's a jabroni.
Everyone's a. Was I right about Bergman? Yeah, right. Quality hair situation.
Some hair days are better than others. Looking good on this one here.
That's the one I'm remembering. A little shorter.
That looks pretty sharp.
Yeah.
That's sharp. That's not too bad. Yeah, he had. I think he spent a little bit of time at Seattle, but for the most part, that was it. That was it for the Bergman.
Couple of days in the bigs. Get that big league paycheck.
Why not?
All right, we'll see who earns their big league paycheck tonight. You got the Rockies taking the series. They got to be able to beat Jordan Lyles. Rockies got to take this series right here tonight. You got to get this one.
Yeah, I thought they would.
You had that.
Hampson has been struggling against righties. It was a tough spot in the game last night. They got away with it because they came away from the win, but he hasn't been hitting right-handed pitchers very well. Couldn't get the bunt down. Was out with 2 strikes there. With Matt Adams just looming on the bench, which he didn't use. So that one wasn't good. But nevertheless, he does hit lefties really well. So I think he'll be good to get a hit on this game. He's plus 650 for a homer. That might be a little bit much. We'll see how much it is just for him to get a hit. Tapia's got to be over 1.5, and he is. Or McMahon over 1.5, Blackman over 1.5 with a lefty on the hill. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
you don't want to take the under, but
I like Hampson to break out a little bit.
And Hampson on the over is only at a half a hit, but that's minus 235, so it's pretty much.
Yeah, it doesn't really.
Yeah, he's gonna have a hit. That's when you make off at DraftKings with your buddies and just go, I bet you a $5 that Hampy gets a hit tonight after struggling last night. You might even get 2.
Because you have to get that bunt down. Again, if it was a competitive season, if this team was in the hunt, that's the kind of thing you're very upset about, even after a win. As the season is right now, you're like, okay. But you can't be the best bunter on the team, a guy who's not doing well at the plate, who brings defense and speed, and your whole thing is supposed to be you do all the fundamentals well, then given the opportunity and they're giving you the bunt. We love Garrett Hampson around here. You have to get that bunt down.
There's a chance they could sweep. I think tonight will be another Rockies victory, a little more high scoring.
Yeah.
Gomber on the hill on Thursday. There are, I think there are a couple bats in that lineup with Nate Lowe and Garcia in the middle of the lineup. Yeah, that's the one that you go, maybe the Rangers can snap their 13-game road losing streak.
They're also, the other guys are due also. Yeah.
To the Texas Rockies and the Colorado Rangers. Yeah, interchangeable.
Oh boy. All right. Well, stick with us for all the baseball. We'll be here throughout the rest of the week, seeing what happens, seeing if maybe the Rockies offense can finally break out for a big game. They need one. Join us for all of that on social media at Patrick Lyons, at Drew Creasman, at DNVR_Rockies. And Joe, I see you asking about Makayla. She's doing hard work out there covering all the playoff stuff going on for the Avs and the Nuggets as well. We'll have her back before too long, but make sure you're following her on social media as well, at Makayla Perkins. Do make sure you're subscribed to the DNVR.com for all the written content and all the discounts and all the perks, including the free shirt and the CBD stuff and hanging out in the Discord, like the 5 billion things we give you for becoming a member of the DNVR family. Other than that, we can only ask that you continue to be absolutely awesome baseball fans out there. We'll continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.